Tension over a possible collapse of democracy in Nigeria. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo on Monday said that democracy in Africa has failed. He criticized a system that facilitates corruption and injustice, where the people in power accumulate wealth illegally while the masses suffer. Obasanjo made the comment at a colloquium in Abuja to mark the 60th birthday of a former governor of Imo State, Emeka Ihedioha. Let's take a look.
So if you are talking of democracy failing in Africa, democracy in Africa has failed. And why has it failed? Because it didn't have any in context and in content. It's not African. It does not have any aspect of our culture, our way of life, what we stand for, what we believe. Ubuntu. I am because we are. It is I am because I can grab. What sort of democracy brings you and you grab everything and then illegally, corruptly, and you say go to court? When you know that even in the court, you cannot get justice. Democracy is failing. Democracy is dying.
I am because I can grab. That's what he's saying. The democracy in Africa, that's how they're practicing democracy in Africa. Well, at a panel discussion during the same event, the leader of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, said that Nigeria's democracy is collapsing over the suspension of the Rivers State Governor, Sim Fubara. Peter Obi recalled how former President Olusegun Obasanjo attempted to intervene when the Anambra State House of Assembly impeached him as governor in 2006.
I became a governor through the court when President Obasanjo and Atiku were in government. I did not pay the court one naira. I was sitting in my house in the office, and the court declared me winner. When a governor is not student, it can happen in Nigeria today. When I was being impeached, the president sent people to come and intervene on my behalf. Ken Namani came begging house people not to impeach me. Today, the president impeaches the person. So that is the thing that is they were begging my house not to impeach me. And they were in PDP. I was in anger. And they were begging. President was calling me and said, Peter, are you okay? Even when I was impeached, President Obasanjo called me and said, are you okay? Are you safe? When I go back from the court, when court eventually declared me under Ndimba, President Yaradua called my phone in London and said, congrats. I said, President, I can't come back because, if I come back, these people, he said, tell me the flight in which you're coming back. And I told him, when I came in the first time, military people came to receive me at the airport. I couldn't believe it. I took me straight to him. Now the president will ask me not to come back here again. So insane. Let's not talk about it. Let's talk about how you're going to rebuild it. It's collapsing.
Well, all right. Let me take a reaction from Bayo Onanuga before I come to you. Well, he wrote on X, I listened multiple times to former Governor Peter Obi's statement in this clip, where he claims that democracy has collapsed in Nigeria. His hyperbolic remarks, suited for headlines, have been made without deep reflection and a lack of solid, logical foundation. How can a democracy that has strengthened over the past 26 years be said to have collapsed? Only a discontented and disgruntled Peter, who benefits from the very free speech democracy provides, could perceive such a democratic downfall through his lens. If democracy had indeed collapsed, as Peter claims, and we were living under a regime antithetical to democratic principles, he would not have been able to make his comments on Monday at Emeka Ihedioha's colloquium. I will urge him to watch what he says and restrain himself from playing to the gallery. Is this a gag on free speech? I mean, free speech is our fundamental. But I mean, by Onanuga's comment, I'd like for you to highlight some of the points that he made there in terms of whether or not Peter Obi is asserting himself properly, or what you think about his comments about democracy collapsing in Nigeria. Ayo.
Interesting take from Mr. Bayo Onanuga, and I'm glad to finally see a response from the presidency. I was expecting such. Earlier on, I don't think we hadn't taken this angle to the story.
Yes.
With Mr. Onanuga's position, he actually goes to further prove what Mr. Peter Obi was saying.
Yes.
A democracy is, well, I wouldn't go as far as saying that it has collapsed or it's collapsing. I would rather toe the line of it's a work in progress. Unfortunately, I don't know how far the progress you would say has been. And I'll just ask simple questions. Number one, the fact that this thought or idea that, oh, we're doing you a favor, that we're not coming down on you, you can speak freely. Freedom of speech, like you rightly said, is guaranteed by the Constitution of Nigeria. It is the right of every Nigerian. It is not bestowed on you. It is not a privilege. It is your right as a Nigerian citizen to express yourself in such a manner. And then if you want to even analyze how free freedom of speech has been under this administration, in only 2 years, they've come under a lot of criticism for their intolerance to feedback and only just look at the example of the lady with the NYSC girl, the young Nigerian who came out to complain, not because she belongs to any party, and she was swooped down by NYSC and NYSC staff themselves. We've talked about people who were picked up because they insulted the president or laid curses of the president, and sometimes there's that blurring of line between culture and what is the law in terms of, oh, how dare you speak to your elders. At the end of the day, every Nigerian above the age of 18 is an employer of the elected president, because if you went to vote, part of your vote was used to employ who is sitting as president today. Then going to say that, I just want to ask a simple question in conclusion. If you look at how democracy started, talking about him saying we've made progress. And so the question is, are we really making progress 26 years down the line from 1999, where we came from military rule to civilian rule? How fair or how much freedom did press people have, or even Nigerians have, in terms of freedom of speech from 1999 till now? You'll be the better judge of that. People have talked about how people were able to express themselves under Jonathan's administration, even under President Obasanjo's administration, who was a former military person. People have also talked about the state of the nation, our systems, our institutions, the judiciary, the legislature. It's the 10th Assembly that people have criticized to say, perhaps this is one of the worst assemblies we've had in recent times. The 10th Assembly has been said to be rubber stamped again and again. Is that in the spirit of true democracy? So there's some critical questions we should ask. But finally, I must say, it's enough for us to stop talking. A lot of these conversations have been had and views expressed have been expressed for so long. It's time for us to roll up our sleeves and begin to get to work to restore Nigeria to the true democracy that we want to see. And if we're going to see that, we need strong institutions. We need a review of the 1999 Constitution. We need men who would stand up for what they are saying, and not just when it suits them or their political parties.
Well said. Rufai, I know you have an additional comment from what you made earlier today.
Couple of things. Isn't it just very funny? You see, this democratic thing too is also very funny. I don't think democracy is dying. I just think there's a reign of strong men, and their impunity follows them, because we don't have checks and balances in the system due to poverty, due to vandalism, due to many factors, illiteracy as it were. But isn't it shocking today that Mr. Bayo Onanuga, whose paper, The News, called, called state of emergency declared by Obasanjo dead, coup in another name.
Coup
in another name. Yes, that's what The News. Is it not? And all the things he condemned Obasanjo for, his president that is working for today, he's doing them, and he can't openly condemn them again. So you can see the way tides have changed. For him to say, oh, Mr. Peter Obi, he can only talk because there's democracy. We have heard a lot of free speech being stifled. We've talked about Thre. What about the people arrested? What about the lady that they said she cursed at President Tinubu and she was picked up? So we had many claims like that. But also for Mr. Peter Obi, you see, I keep insisting, the way we have big men in this country that makes it so easy for them to have a winner-takes-all mentality is the problem. I have seen a couple of messages. I'll say, Mr. Peter Obi that is talking as a democracy, when he was governor of Anambra State, he ran the state with also administrator of the local government. And I've taken that question to him many times. He's rebutted a little bit, but there were cases in court. So when you look at it across board, there's always a latitude to be able to do these things. The question is, how can we slim down that latitude?
Yes.
Because the same Mr. Peter Obi that said Obasanjo fought for him, you know, when he was impeached, the same Rashidi Adewolu Ladoja cannot say the same of Obasanjo when Adedibu did impeach him. I know of that incident because I was around Ibadan that period. I know what happened. There was skirmish, there was fights at the what's it called, the parliament in Ibadan that day with a lot of thugs. So the same Obasanjo that was like good to him, Adewolu Ladoja cannot say that was the same case with him.
All right.
So it's both ways. But the question we should ask is, why is it that men that were once called defenders of democracy, people like Tinubu, are now those against the tenets of democracy today?
Right.
Why is it that men like OBJ, that in their time, they could have done it better, they didn't do it better, they violated those tenets, and now they keep crusaders today? That's what we should fix.
Yes.